Hey guys, I am Ibigandscary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay, this time featuring in our top left-hand side sHy, our red diamond level Protoss, and our opponent in the bottom right-hand side is hgSKKU. I, I don't know, SK? We could go HG. We could go Mercury. Oh my goodness, Mercury. HG, Mercury. That's what it is. We're gonna go with Mercury. He is our blue Terran in our bottom right hand side. Iron Fortress LE is our game, and I am currently drinking a Yingling Black and Tan because I don't know if this is a spoiler. How about you look down like a good 10 inches and look at the bottom of the video that's currently playing and realize that this is going to be like a 35-minute video, which is a long ass game. I mean, in Blizzard time, that's like 50 minutes, and that means that this is a slugging match for the ages. And so I've brought something to kind of wet my whistle. And it is a stein full of black and tan. So as this game goes on, probably I will become increasingly more slurred, increasingly more irate, not because of the alcohol, but because I hate games that go on for an hour, because usually that means that everyone's being super passive. But I'm not going to judge. Mercury is throwing down a barracks. He's throwing down that refinery. I wasn't paying attention too much to the timing, but we can look that the refinery is going to finish a couple of seconds before the barracks. Going to have enough to get out that Reaper, probably going for that very typical Reaper opening, not so early with the gas in order to go for that 1-1-1. So we'll keep an eye out on that. Keep an eye out for it. If I ever stop talking for an extended period of time and you hear a gulp in the background, that's simply me enjoying my beautiful black and tan. I can't wait. I can't wait. Assimilators going down, double tapping the assimilators actually with a gateway shortly thereafter. Neither player really saving up a ridiculous amount of money, but as I say that, Mercury is climbing up to the 300 mineral mark. What did he just throw down? He just spent a lot of money. Oh, of course, on the orbital command. I thought maybe he was saving up for a expansion, but no. Reaper being produced, 3 gas at a time. I wonder what he's going to be spending all that gas for. Probably an add-on in the near futures, followed by a factory, or maybe he's throwing down the factory first. I don't know. I'm not going to tell him how to live his life. It's all good. sHy is throwing down a cybernetics core also, and in fact it's going for that two workers. I'm sure you guys are very familiar. Eking out just a little bit of extra gas. Tells me he's probably going to be going for a gas heavy play, wants to get out some tech early on. I'd love to see a starport immediately after this cybernetics core finishes, but we'll see. No, going for the warp gate tech. That's fine. I mean, it's important to get that started very, very quickly, but he's also not saving any chrono boost at all for that. So it's interesting that he's got so much gas coming in. Doesn't look like he's spending that gas for anything very, very important. Usually whenever you see double gas geysers being tapped like this and you only have 2 workers in it, he knows exactly what he wants to use that gas for. And you know, he's not using that gas to get any massive advantage. Speaking of an advantage, economic advantage going over to Mercury right now. We have a command center down on the low ground, going to take that natural, and he waited to do that until his Reaper actually came in to see exactly what was going on. No 4-gate, fast expand or no forge out on the field right now. He doesn't have to worry about any shenanigans. 400 minerals almost saved up. Is the probe in position? It is not. Okay, that's fine. Oh no, he's gonna be making a starport. Wow, look at that. He's also got plenty of minerals left over. Probably gonna be throwing in a nexus on the low ground, but I love the Stargate play. Very cool. Very, very cool. I always do Stargate instead of Starport, but it's because the factory was on the production tab. I'd love to see a Starport immediately thereafter for Mercury. There it goes. The beautiful 1-1-1 play with the reactor down on the barracks right now. Is he going to be making Widow Mines, or is he going to be going over to the Hellion play? I've seen both from Terrans. Widow Mine is by far my favorite because it's so much easier to do massive amounts of damage. Hellion rewards really skilled players. However, I feel like the safer play is to get those Widow Mines out there to harass, force your opponent to get some detection, which for Protoss is very difficult. At the same time, with the Oracle being produced, that could be a source of detection. Nexus halfway done. At the same time, the command center is already making itself into the orbital. So again, that economic advantage is starting to show its effect. Even though the harvester deficit, those mules are going to start to add a massive influx of minerals. And really, he's not very far behind on tech at all. I mean, he's got his 1-1-1 out. Not a lot of add-ons. He's not working on that STEM upgrade that I'd love to see, but he does have his engineering bay out. So maybe, he's not behind. He's not behind. Neither player has really exchanged any blows at all. Neither player has cut massive amounts of corners and not been punished, so we're very much neck and neck, and I expect that neck and neck thing to continue for a little bit. I wonder if this Oracle is going to end the game. Probably not. Probably not. Oracle is moving in from the north side. Oh, we see a missile turret being produced. Did he scout that? Did he scout that? He did scout that. He must have scouted it with his Reaper. His Reaper probably did go down, and the missile turret finishes just in the nick of time, showing you just how powerful that can be. A really, really clutch play from Mercury, shutting down that Oracle before it could do any damage. However, that Oracle might have scouted out this missile, medevac just to the left side of it, but the fact that it's not trailing it tells me no, he did not. Let's look at the unit positioning right now. We have a pylon going down just to the north side of the natural, but no static defenses there. Handful of stalkers standing by, a mothership core with absolutely glorious amount of energy. Oh yeah, so the Phoenix was totally in position to intercept this medevac, but this is why I love those Widow Mines. Even if they're scattered out, even if there's lightning reflexes by sHy to throw down that photon cannon, those two guys are totally going to be able to get burrowed and will be able to do massive damage to those probes whenever they finally decide to return to that mineral line. And the Oracle did not come back home. It's not going to be able to provide any form of detection, and this could be disastrous. No, he's it looks like he's sacrificing a handful. Oh, I didn't even notice that he had an observer finished already. Wow. It's actually a complete shutdown from the Jock from Mercury. So Sky is he's done quite a lot of damage, and now the Oracle is continuing to be a thorn in the side of our Terran player. So Mercury is losing quite a lot of workers right now, even though he did get that expansion significantly faster than his opponent. Third CC is being produced, however, that the CCs are going to continue to die until there's some form of anti-air in this area. 3 Marines not going to do it. Remember, you need 6 to actually take down that Oracle, and so that is just adding to the building kill count for this 9 kills Oracle. Another Oracle moving in from the north side. I don't believe this was the first Oracle. I believe this is the second Oracle. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter. It's still an Oracle. It's still going to be taking down a lot of units. Ooh, a Raven in the air. I should pay more attention to the production bay, but in order to get to it, I have to kind of crane my neck over to the left side, so I'm just making excuses. I'm just lazy. Robotics. Oh no, robotics bay already being produced, and this is something else that sHy's been doing really, really well, is keeping his units alive. He's not accomplishing too much with the harassment, but that's because the mineral fields are not safe for his oracles to push in. So what he's doing is keeping his oracles alive, keeping it so that they're doing a lot of damage. And this is that's a really good play by Mercury, actually, to push in, sacrifice his Hellions in order to take out both of those sentries. Obviously, if you look at the sheer numbers, that's probably in the favor of sHy, but it's very important for Mercury to make it so that the energy count on those sentries are not very high whenever sHy decides to move out. Those sentries can be incredibly powerful when they're coupled with a Colossus, which is being produced right now, really shutting down the Terran's ability to stem and move forward with his Marines. Double factories have been made right now, one of which has a tech lab, is going to be producing those what do you call them, siege tanks. Thank you. I swear I had a stroke. But with 4 factories having produced, it's pretty easy for us to say that Mercury is going to be transitioning over into mech, which explains the absence of that early stem. All is forgiven. In fact, the engineering base sitting silent too probably was a massive clue in on that, but I don't feel comfortable making that decision because I've seen enough early harassment early on with that 1-1 build, and then a transition back into something else. The dreaded move command of the Stalkers once again striking, and the Colossus is exposing itself just a little bit, but with just a single Hellion out on the field, there's really not a lot that Mercury can do to stop this for now. The Widow Mines, providing a little bit of reconnaissance early on, but with just a single siege tank on the field, he's really going to be having to rely on his Vikings to take this down. It's really surprising that sHy's being so aggressive with such a small meat shield, and he's beginning to pay the price to this. A really nice point defense drone, taking out all those Stalkers. Good resupply of the Stalkers on the north side. The siege tank doing quite a lot of damage, and it looks like that Colossus is going to fall, and with that, sHy is going to have absolutely no option but to pull back. Ultimately a wash for his aggressive first push. However, he kind of missed an opportunity to push in with his oracles too. I mean, remember, if the he's being distracted. If Mercury's being distracted over here, those oracles could easily swoop in on this side. The missile turret is well within range of pretty much anything over here by the mineral line, but there's no reason those 2 oracles couldn't come in here and take out probably half of the mineral lines if they wanted to sacrifice themselves. And even if they didn't want to sacrifice themselves, they could still do quite a lot of damage before their shields were totally taken care of. I mean, look at that. They just took out like 4 SCVs in the blink of an eye. I mean, oracles are absolutely vicious. Looks like that Widowmine is going to go down. Once again, a Colossus well far out on the field. Got to be careful with that because those Vikings do have a commanding presence up in the air. Only 2 Vikings right now, which is surprising. I mean, I'd love to see more Vikings being made. Do we have them on the production tab? No, we don't. Just a medevac. Going to be keeping these Hellbats pristine, even going so far as for a Widowmine drop, which is interesting because 2 Hellbats and 2 medevacs really can decimate a probe line. 2 photon cannon over here in the natural, or the main. The third is pretty much exposed, no detection there at all, but the resupply capabilities of these gateways that have already been made, as well as a photon cannon going down, these Widow Mines probably not going to be the most effective of doing quite a lot of damage. Phoenix is going to be in the area. Boost hasn't been used just yet, so maybe this medevac won't go down. Oh, it's a little late. Yeah, okay, so he succeeds in actually getting those Widow Mines out. Not a total wash. At the same time, it looks like sHy is going to be poking in, just trying to be a little bit aggressive at this third, but with the siege tank count beginning to climb, I don't think sHy is going to be able to be very aggressive. I really, really like the addition of the Immortals. Check that out. 2 Immortals being produced at a time. Double robotics facility is very, facility, I had it right. Is very good at keeping pace with this climbing number of siege tanks. I'm actually going to miss the change to Immortals in Legacy of the Void because I really like the idea of a hardened shield. I know it didn't really come into play very often, but when it did, it was incredibly powerful, and it was something that made the Immortals just so very unique. I guess they're not really non-unique now. It's not like they're plain or anything like that. Once again, the move command on these Immortals really costing a lot of damage. Double oracles going down, which is absolutely devastating. Blink almost done, and it looks like sHy is once again feeling frisky. This is very important though. sHy has to keep these Immortals alive, needs to keep his Colossus alive. Probably isn't going to be making any more Colossus just because the air battle has been completely won by the Terran player right now, and sHy knows it. I mean, he's not really committing to building a bunch of Phoenixes. He's only built that one so that he could kind of run interference for the medevacs because he knows that Widowmine drops are a very, very big problem. I really don't agree with sHy trying to force the issue here. He's got a 4th base up right now. He's keeping his opponent contained on just 3. So really what he needs to do is scout and contain his Terran buddy. I mean, Terran is approaching max supply. He's approaching that critical mass of siege tanks. Eventually the siege tanks are going to begin to crawl across the map. So how does sHy keep him contained? Well, he starts switching over to something a little bit more durable than his Stalkers. Stalkers do have that blink. They will be able to start harass, but they really don't belong in the central core unit composition of the army. Something like Zealot Charge is definitely not out of place and is definitely more powerful. These Stalkers need to either blink down on top of those siege tanks to actually start doing some damage, or they need to go somewhere else and start to be used for harassment. Leave the meat of the battle to be dealt with for the Immortals, leave the meat of the damage coming from those Immortals, as well as soaking up a lot of damage from those Zealots. I'd like to see this unit composition begin to change. The addition of the Archons is a very, very good idea. I mean, another meaty unit that can take a couple of hits while it's trying to close in on that siege tank ball. But it looks like Mercury is actually moving out with his siege tanks right now, and these Hellbats, man, speaking of a meat shield, they take so much damage. Really, both players are hoping that one player will engage into the other one. sHy cannot engage this army directly. These siege tanks are just way too much of them. Even with the hardened shields, we can see that those Immortals just melt to the hailfire from all of those siege tanks. On the other side of things, these Hellbats are going to quickly melt away if they're not within the artillery range of those siege tanks supporting them. So it's kind of at a standstill right now. I'm beginning to understand why this game went so long, because both players really have a good unit composition against the other player, and this is an excellent answer to that. Ghosts being added into the mix, these Ghosts will be able to EMP down the Immortals, making them much more delicate compared to the robust siege tank line that's being produced right now. I like the DT addition also. Hellion run by is going to get cleaned up pretty quickly by those stalkers. Not a lot of probes do go down. Let's switch over to the economic tab right now. 73 over to 72 harvesters doesn't tell you the whole story, as the 4th base is being taken right now by Terran, and remember, he's got those orbital commands. In fact, another orbital command positioned over here at the 3rd, so really neither player is behind economically speaking. As far as tech goes, he's got Hard Templars, he's got Ghosts. Anybody behind on upgrades? +2 to +2 and 1. So I guess Protoss might have an edge on that. A blink forward from those stalkers, picking off a handful of those siege tanks. Those siege tanks are totally unsieged right now. I don't know why Mercury decided to retreat so far. I guess he was hoping for this choke right here, making it very difficult for the numerically superior force from the Protoss to actually get a good concave, which is what sHy was hoping for. In fact, you see that split right now with so many Immortals on the field. 12 Immortals. Woof. Wow, that's impressive. It looks like I wonder what happened here. I guess the CC went down. I'm not sure. Maybe the DTs actually tried for a run by and actually succeeded in taking them down. No doubt I was distracted by something, and for that I apologize. EMP goes down, taking out all of those shields. We can see how quickly sHy's army has to retreat in order to keep them alive. And on the back of that, Mercury's feeling good, is going to be pushing out. But I think sHy is trying to be clever. He's trying to swing down to the south side of this central avenue, as Mercury pushes up to the north side. Is just trying to go for like a base trade scenario, because he knows that if he can get these siege tanks out of position, he can easily take a fight. So both players are being very cat and mouse. 187 over 200, 200 supply. There goes the aggressive blink forward from those stalkers, well into range of those siege tanks. However, with just those stalkers having absolutely no support, they get quickly cleaned up. Man, these stalkers would be so much better if they were doing harassment into any one of these outlying bases. Siege tanks are pushing forward. The Hellbats number is beginning to kind of dwindle. Doesn't have nearly as many Hellbats as he used to. The Ghosts are providing a little bit of meat shield themselves, being able to throw down EMPs, but the Immortal count is quickly approaching the point where there's enough Immortals that they can push forward even without shields and start to crack this siege tank line. And with the siege tank line supporting units, the glial cells that would normally be keeping these siege tanks alive, begins to dwindle, they kind of lose their shield themselves. So there goes the siege up of those siege tanks. sHy forcing to retreat. This Zelnaga watchtower really affording him a very easily defensible position, knowing exactly when his opponent is sieging, very quickly being able to retreat, pushing forward with his high-ranged Colossi, being able to shell down a little bit of damage, and then retreat right whenever the Colossi gets within range of the sieged up siege tanks. So sHy's really playing this very, very well, is doing exactly what he needs to do to stay in this game, producing 3 Colossi at a time. Very, very impressive. And now with the meat shield pushing over here to the left side, this is the opening that sHy needs. This meat shield has been completely dwindled. sHy needs to push in here right now, sacrifice a lot of his units to take down this siege tank line, because that siege tank line is impregnable normally. And yeah, we can see now that the meat shield has been reproduced, that window is dwindled, that window is gone, which is unfortunate, because that was really the opportunity that sHy needed in order to crack this turtle, basically. Need to crack the shell. And it looks like sHy's now going to be trying for it, but with the siege tank line protected by all these Ghosts, protected by all these Hellbats, yeah, you can just see that Protoss gets torn to pieces. Even so, I mean, he does succeed in taking down that meat shield line, so unless Mercury feels comfortable with just kind of hopping forward little by little with these siege tanks, I think that Mercury's going to have to feel content to take down this base in and of itself, just by itself. I'd love to see some nukes being produced. Anytime you see Ghosts out on the field, that's what we really, really want. 3 Colossus being produced at a time. sHy can afford to get kind of frisky, but again, the meat shield has been kind of dwindled for sHy also. He's got a lot of Colossus out, but his Immortal count is completely destroyed, and he's not remaxing with any beefy units. The stalkers die very, very quickly. Yes, being able to blink forward is fantastic. Being able to take out those Colossus or those siege tanks is absolutely incredible, except whenever you're dealing with a number of this size. Had those stalkers blinked on top of this, they'd be incredibly just destroyed very, very quickly. sHy has produced a really nice opportunity right now. The siege tank line is totally out of position, and Protoss is going to be able to swing in here, and it's going to be able to throw down quite a lot of artillery fire on top of that. In fact, Mercury knows that he's in a bit of a precarious situation, is having to force himself to push forward with his unsieged tanks into the welcoming arms of those Colossus. Again, those Colossus counts staying very, very high for sHy is incredibly important, because that's really the only artillery he has that can answer back to the siege tank's artillery itself. So really, really good plays coming out from sHy. He was in a bad position. He lost quite a lot of economic edge because that base did go down, and Mercury was being very aggressive with his siege tank line and had managed to procure a very interesting position. Mercury was in a good shape, and sHy kind of forced him to come back. He's remaxing with very beefy units. Those Zealots do have charge now. They'll be able to close very, very quickly on top of those siege tanks. And you're right, Zealots do die very quickly to the siege tanks, but they draw fire very quickly, and they allow the Colossus, which there's enough of them, to actually get within range to be able to shell down quite a lot of fire on top of those siege tanks, and that's what those Zealots need to do. And that's something that the Stalkers can't do. The Stalkers die way too quickly. There's no comparing Zealots to Stalkers whenever it comes to a unit composition like this. 200 supply to 150 right now. It looks like Mercury is beginning to dwindle on his own economy. I mean, his natural is almost completely mined out. Main is completely mined out, and the third is beginning to look a little sparse too. So it's very important that this fourth base stays up, and that is exactly what's not going to happen, because the siege tank line is out of position, and sHy is capable of just shelling down massive amounts of damage, completely taking down that base. The Vikings finally making an appearance. 4 Vikings up in the air, no Stalkers on the ground at all. Really not a lot that can shoot up. Okay, handful of Stalkers on the ground. It looks like they're going to be able to force back those Vikings, but this is exactly what Mercury needs in order to get those Colossus count back down, because this is an unmanageable amount of Colossus right now. Even with all these siege tanks, we've seen that the Colossus ability to keep walking, keep firing, makes them so much more mobile than the siege tanks, and Mercury has to stay one step ahead of where the Colossi are going. And those Colossi are just going to keep walking. Even though Mercury knows exactly what they're heading, he's still not unsieging his siege tanks, because he needs to defend 2 very, very far away bases. Remember, he's only on 2 mining bases right now. If he loses this one, this could be an absolute crippling blow. Those SCVs do go down, maybe just to free up a little bit of supply. I have no idea why he'd want to do that with 150 over 200 supply. I just realized that I boxed where my little name tag is, so that's kind of funny. The Viking count has risen to a very intimidating amount, and look at that, already down to only 5 Colossi right now. So Mercury is getting right back into the game, making it so that only a handful of Colossi remain, and definitely not enough to actually threaten this massive amount of siege tanks. In fact, these siege tanks can start to spread out. We can have little clumpings over here, little clumpings over here to defend this base, and it looks like Mercury is feeling comfortable enough to actually take his base back. On the same time, I'm going to take just a sip of my water. Oh, it's so good. Feels fantastic in my throat, which is quite parched right now. sHy has succeeded in taking pretty much every base that you could possibly imagine, and has accumulated quite a bit of wealth for him. 3k for the minerals, almost 1k for the gas, which is pretty impressive because he's producing 3 Colossi at a time, trying to remax with his army. Starting up on the shield upgrades, which means he's probably 3-3 right now. Yeah, 3-3 plus 1 for the shields. Probably going to be starting on the +2 in just a minute. We can see that the Terran army is lagging behind on the upgrades. I think he's at 3-1 right now. 3-1, but he's got that Infernal Pre-Igniter, going to be able to get those Hellions throwing down a little bit of blue flame to make it so that they can do quite a lot of damage. This is something impressive. sHy has taken my advice to heart and has completely modded out all of his Stalkers. However, he doesn't have anything that shoots up except for these Archons, and it's very difficult to get the Archons within range of the Vikings because they have something like 11 range. It's ridiculous how far Vikings can shoot, and because of that, they can outrange quite a lot of stuff on the ground, certainly outraging the Archons, making it very difficult for sHy to defend against these units. Oh, a bit of a missed micro there, sending a bit of his army too close to that siege tank line. We can see that even the mighty Archon goes down to a hail of artillery fire, but look at all these Colossi. Needs to keep the Archons close to this ramp, making it so that the Vikings, if they get underneath, the splash damage from the Archons can do quite a lot of damage. Unfortunately, he's made all of his High Templars into Archons, so he doesn't have that storm capability that would normally just absolutely wreck these Archons. I mean, look, these Vikings. I mean, look how tightly clumped up they are. One storm on top of them can easily take them all the way down to deep orange, doing quite a lot of damage. And I'd love to see one or two of these Archons not being made. One or two of these Archons being High Templars, being able to throw down a little bit of storm. Also, with the addition of Vikings on the enemy composition, all of a sudden Stalkers become a lot more viable, a lot more important, and being able to add them into your mix, once again for harassment, but also to shut down the harassment from your opponent, as well as shut down the anti-air from them. sHy is reacting very strongly to any form of harassment coming out from Mercury. I'm surprised to see that Mercury isn't doing any drops at all. We have Fusion Core on the production tab, awesome. Probably some Battleship Cores in the near future, Corvid Reactor being produced by Mercury. Also going to be working towards a couple of those Ravens, very important because they really complement the battle cruisers whenever they actually get out. Also battle cruisers are pretty fun, I'm not going to lie. How many did he just scan? Oh yeah, he's just checking for other bases. Yeah, I mean, you can scan all you want. There's a lot of Nexus out there. There's quite a lot. And as Mercury begins to dwindle on his ability to mine, I mean, his third base is now almost completely mined out. And ooh, it looks like a major engagement here to the north side. A lot of those Colossi do go down. Viking count is beginning to dwindle as they overreach from the siege tank line. Got to be careful with those Stalkers. Again, they melt so very, very quickly to those siege tanks. But he did succeed in taking out a lot of those Vikings. However, their work is pretty much done. I mean, they've taken out all but one row of those Colossus, and we can see that sHy is once again teching back into the Immortals, realizing that he's not going to be able to keep these Colossi alive. They're not really giving him a big return on investment, but they've been very important so far in keeping these siege tanks in check. So I don't know if it's the right decision to completely give up on the Colossi. I think it might be a better idea to tech into something that can handle those Vikings. And again, I can't stress this enough, Storm would really, really help him out right now. It does such a good job of zoning the opponent. And even High Templars being able to feed back, keeping the battle cruisers in check, that's something else that could come into play later on, obviously. sHy doesn't know about that, but I'd really like to see some High Templars right now. Looks like that fourth base is going to go down. The unsiege has already happened, is swinging in from the north side. So sHy's going to be in a bit of between a rock and a hard place, but he does have that escape avenue over here to the left. Succeeds in taking down that orbital command at the same time. This is a fantastic engagement for sHy. He needs to blink forward to get his guys on top of the siege tank line, if at all. But no, he decides to blink backwards. Everything else just completely melts away. That siege tank line is still very impressive, but the meat shield has been completely cleaned up. First two battle cruisers are out on the production tab right now. I don't know how. I guess sHy could have just retreated, cut his losses, take down that orbital command, realize that you can't push into this siege tank line, totally retreat. That's a fine decision. This is not a fine decision. You have blink on these Stalkers. You need to use them. You need to push them down on top of this unsieged siege tank line and do quite a lot of damage. A lot of Immortals out on the field right now. A really nice concave, but with no blink being used. There we go. That's a nice blink. And this is exactly what he needs. Look at this. Look at how quickly those Immortals just shred those siege tanks. This siege tank line had like 20 siege tanks in it, and now we're down to only 6. That is fan-freaking-tastic. That is so good, and that's what needed to happen so long ago, but sHy was being too passive. We're down to 87 over 77 supply. sHy still has a massive bank. However, Mercury has a massive tech advantage in the form of battle cruisers that are on the field right now. No carriers in sight for sHy. He's going to have to rely on something a little bit more sneaky, having a lot, and I mean a lot, of Archons being made from DTs. A really nice, a nice way to spend quite a lot of minerals very quickly is producing those DTs, producing those Archons. That's a really good dump for a lot of extra gas, a lot of extra minerals, and those Archons are going to be a fantastic answer to these battle cruisers. Even with, oh my goodness, 332. That is the power of Terran mech being able to transition into these battle cruisers with such very powerful upgrades that have been benefiting your siege tanks this entire time. +3 Terran vehicle weapon armor rather being produced, and I even saw a Ghost on the production tab a little while ago. Does he have a Ghost currently out on the field? He does. Just one. Just one. And no, he cannot push this one off into the Wild Blue yonder. He needs to keep that one with the main base, because an EMT down on top of those Archons would be so incredibly important. Blue Flame Hellion doing a fantastic amount of work over here at the expansion. 33 over 49 for the Harvester count. We can see that that bank has been completely cleaned up right now for sHy, but sHy has managed to resupply very quickly. I mean, he's at 120 over 93 supply right now. Those DTs not really doing quite a lot of damage. Just taking out a single missile turret really would have been better served over here, but with the planetary fortress in the area, not a lot of DT can do there with the detection already in position. So overall, DT's not going to be able to equalize this game very, very easily. Really what needs to happen is these battle cruisers need to die. How do you do that? Obviously, a feedback on those battle cruisers can do quite a lot of damage. That's definitely something that's helpful, and then Storm immediately thereafter from those High Templars are great. But I think the Archons were a fantastic play by sHy. It really got him back into the game, got a standing army very, very quickly made. And then with the Immortals mixed into the mix, he's going to be able to shred through anything on the ground very quickly. So sHy's definitely not out of this. He's been on a defensive position for so long with these Hellion run-bys, with these siege tanks just being frisky, and he's taking blow after blow to his economy, but he's got so many Nexus out on the field right now. He can produce 5 probes at a time, quickly resupply, and those cost money. Those Hellions require 100 minerals each, and those are minerals that Mercury is running out of. He's only mining from 2 different bases, and one of those bases is quickly beginning to dwindle. The other base is a precarious position that he's lost several times. Another DT doing quite a lot of damage, but is just showing the fact that Raven with a handful of battle cruisers is enough to take out any number of DTs that you want to throw at it. Another Nexus being made. I don't think you need another expansion. I think you need another round of probes, really. And throwing another 400 minerals into a Nexus might not be the best idea. It might be a better idea to spend that on Zealots in order to keep these guys alive. 4 High Templars being made. Will they be made right into Archons? Yes, they will. Oh well. That's okay. My dream of a Storm will come true eventually. I guarantee it. I sure hope so. Maybe not. I don't know. He's done well so far without, Storm. He doesn't really need it, right? And feedback does what? 1 damage per 2 energy, if I recall correctly. So it's only 100 damage to these BCs. Still 100 damage in 1 spell is not, it's nothing to sneeze at. Nothing to sneeze at all. 119, basically 120. Oh, wow, 135. Another BC, a Thor being produced right now. Oh, my Lanta. That's going to be impressive. Really nothing in the air to take out of, but Thors are very, very meaty, providing another bulk of hit points that can sit down on top of the Terran army, can soak up quite a lot of damage, and distract these Archons from being able to shoot up. And remember, those Archons have very, very short range, so they really need to get underneath the battlecruisers. Battlecruisers have short range too, so I'm pretty sure the Archon actually wins out in the range battle. If not, it's very, very close. So yeah, have to keep an eye out on that. Another Hellion run by going off to the north side. Interesting enough, we don't see any photon cannons being made down here, which would definitely hold these guys in check. sHy once again reacting to a small Hellion run by with the majority of his army. Rather than shutting down these expansions, he's actually running back with everything he possibly has, which is unfortunate because I feel right now that if there was a straight on fight, sHy would probably come out on top. I mean, 176 to 153 supply. The battle cruiser number is only going to get higher and higher and higher, and this anti-air is not the most impressive thing in the world. Obviously, these Archons were all underneath the BC shooting up. They'd instantly melt them away, but that's not going to happen. We haven't seen that sort of unit control coming out from sHy. sHy's had a problem with blinking the Stalkers forward. He's had a very big problem with making it so that all of his Immortals are engaging, and even now, so many of those Zealots, so many of those Immortals are being underfoot when he's trying to shoot down some damage on that orbital command center. Ooh, a bit of a hailfire from Mercury is forcing back sHy. sHy needs to take a good engagement. Maybe up here is a place for that engagement, but he's got to be very careful because as these BCs engage, those BCs are going to be able to engage over these cliffs. So sHy has to be very, very careful where he decides to engage, and he's doing a good job of retreating right now. Unfortunately, he's setting up some of the units to take a handful of pot shots. There goes the Yamato cannon, keeping that energy very, very low. sHy is turning around, finally getting a nice ability to get a concave on the north side. Those Archons are in the very, very front. He will be able to do quite a lot of anti-air damage, but the Immortals are not doing damage. A lot of the Archons are in the back, not shooting upward. The battlecruisers are beginning to fall, but so are the Archon numbers. I honestly don't know which one's going to come out on top. It looks like sHy. It looks like sHy is going to hold out. Oh no, 3 BCs still alive. DTs being made into Archons on the north side. Where's the resupply? No money at all for it. 2 Archons being made, a handful of Stalkers coming in. Where's the blink control? Got to keep them alive. The Mortals have to move down here, start doing some economic damage. Just 2 of the Colossi are still alive. There goes the Yamato Cannon down on top of the Archon. Archon on move command, no, attack command on the BC limping away. It looks like this last BC is going to go down. A little bit of bank left. I think sHy has this. I think sHy has this. That was the most incredible battle at the very, very end of things. That was perfect. That was a perfect way to end this. Speaking of ending, it looks like this 4th base is completely mined out. 3rd has been mined out for quite a while. 4th is still, mineable. I mean, he is still mining, but at the same time, sHy has so many different bases, and all of them have a very good amount of saturation, just because he's been continually churning out those probes. A nice blink forward from those Stalkers, good reaction time from sHy, is going to be able to clean them up. I'd love for him just to box this army right here, send them off down here to take out that planetary fortress, and then continue to swing south, because slowly but surely Mercury is building up his force once again. That was such a fantastic fight at the end of things. I was telling you that the Archons being able to get underneath those BCs was so very, very important, and you could see that so many of those Archons weren't engaging at the very, very start of things, but eventually sHy manages to push forward. I don't know if it was just by unit control or by sheer attrition of his units, but ultimately he barely squeaked out a win. And unfortunately, with only 2 BCs out on the field, the 3rd one joining, I don't believe this is going to be enough to hold in check the 5 Archons that are currently out on the field right now. We'll see, especially if he catches these Immortals kind of exposed right now. That could be a major pickup for Mercury, and that's exactly what's happening. Archons are swinging in here. Remember, this is the last vestige of economy for Mercury, so even if he loses his entire force right now, it wouldn't be the end of the world for sHy. However, those Archons are once again in the front, taking down those Hellbats. Needs to get underneath these BCs. A 3rd BC is swinging in from the south side. Gotta be careful. Really can't be that aggressive with these BCs. If they go down, if the Archons get underneath, then this game is totally over. 5 Archons being made right now. sHy once again resupplying up to 140 supply, almost twice that of Mercury. So this is quickly spiraling out of control, with a mothership core also being warped in. 3 more siege tanks being produced. If that siege tank line gets back up to where it needs to be, if these Widow Mines get off the shots that they need to get, maybe Mercury can claw his way back in, but he realizes that this is the most important thing for him to be doing right now, is mining, getting up more minerals, because he's so starved right now. This orbital command needs to be over here, or maybe over here, and just scraping together just a handful of minerals so that he can continue to produce the better units. He's got the tech for BCs. He's not producing those BCs because he's spending his money on Widow Mines. Yeah, he's got a ridiculous amount of Widow Mines out here right now, but if those Widow Mines aren't burrowed, and correctly burrowed in the right position, they're not going to do anything. Look at that. They get completely shredded up. Half of them go down, and 1 or 2 of the Archons are going to get hit, and then that's it. That's it. Those Widow Mines don't do nearly enough damage. The Archons immediately get underneath the BCs. It looks like the 2nd one's going to get cleaned up. A 3rd one has to deal with 5 Archons. Mercury does tap out, and sHy takes the win. What a fantastic game. That was great. That was incredibly boring for the first 30 minutes. But after that, it was really, really entertaining just to see how both players were making decisions of what they need to build, what they need to phase out of their army. I mean, we saw that Stalkers came in and out of vogue 2 or 3 times in this matchup. And so did the Colossi, and so did the Immortals. And then at the same time, Mercury being able to tech over into battlecruisers totally blindsiding sHy, because he had no anti-air at all, and really being put in an uncomfortable situation, and then responding correctly, realizing that, hey, you know what, I can afford to lose a base, I can afford to lose a little bit of units, I can afford to lose all those Colossi, I need to just continue to make the right decision and win this war of attrition. And that's what he did. I mean, look at all this red, look at all the blue. way more red bases than blue bases, and that math spells out a victory for sHy, which is fantastic. You know what else is fantastic is people who watch my videos. Thank you so much. If you have a game you want me to cast, you could PM me here or on Reddit. One way or another, I will see you guys later. I am Ibigandscary. Bye.